Welcome back to Parashat Beh-hah-ah-lote-khah. My name is Ariel ben-Lyman HaNaviy. I'm the author of the commentary. We have been talking about the Menorah. We've been talking about Isaiah chapter 11, verses 1 through 5, as well as chapter 61, the first few verses there. We've brought in a few passages or a few verses from the book of Luke. We looked at the book of Revelation, and what we found out is that Yeshua is likened to the menorah in the sense that he, of course, receives his anointing by the oil of the Spirit, the same way that we are to receive our anointing. But also, we found that there is a pattern of 7 when it comes to Yeshua being the receiving the anointing of the Spirit and the Spirit of God resting upon him. And the menorah is laid out in a fashion or a pattern of 7, where we have a central shaft with 3 pairs on one side, or 3 branches on one side and 3 on the other, and that gives us our pattern of 7. And Yeshua, utilizing 2 Isaiah passages simultaneously, I believe, utilizing as well the Masoretic and having his knowledge of the Septuagint, the Greek, uses this passage to teach the audience about himself. And so it was a very fun study. Hope you go back and listen to part A. But for now, let's move on to part B, and let's talk about those fascinating Bible codes. How many of you, raise your hand, be honest, when you hear the term Bible codes, your curiosity gets piqued? We've all seen the books. I think they were really popular a few years back. Michael Drosnin had this book called The Bible Codes, where supposedly using a computer-rated software and an algorithm that was plugged into the computer, we could practice something known as equidistant letter spacing, where if you count the letters equally spaced out across a text, you can take these letters and put them back together, and they would spell the names of certain individuals or give us dates of an important historic event. Ostensibly, this computer-assisted program was able to look into the future and tell us things that the Torah at the time could not have possibly known, or the writers themselves could not have possibly known. And so Michael Drosnin started kind of a sensational buzz with the whole Bible codes thing. Well, this next section of my Torah commentary is entitled Hidden Codes, and it's got a little question mark after the word codes. Are there really hidden codes in the Bible? Well, I don't want to answer just right up front. Just let's go into my commentary and we'll find out. Now, we were talking about the menorah. We took a menorah and we turned it topwise, where we're looking at it just directly on, where we had kind of somewhat, I guess I call it an algebraic equation, simply because it uses letters. That's not really, I suppose, the best description, maybe more like an alphabetic equation. We had the letter A representing our central shaft, and then we had on the left and the right of the letter A, we had a letter B, and then to the left and right of the B we had a letter C, and then to the left and the right of the C we had a letter D. If you have my written notes, just turn back to page 3 at the bottom and you'll see the little diagram. Okay? The above diagram gives us a description of the symmetry that went into the work of the menorah. And the following diagram that I'm also going to draw is going to help demonstrate what I'm about to explain concerning a mystical or a hidden meaning of the menorah patterns. We call these mystical or esoteric meanings. We call this the Sod, S-O-D. According to the rabbis, there are... Sorry about that, my microphone got tangled up. According to the rabbis, there are 4 basic ways of interpreting the Torah. We call these the 7 rules of Hillel. And within these rules that have been devised, as it were, let me just turn to my Torah here. I've got a little cheat sheet in the back of my Bible. Is this one of the 7 rules of Hillel? I don't think this is. I apologize. I was going to say this is one of the 7. I don't think this is one of the 7. This is just basically the 4 ways in which the rabbis, or maybe it's the 13 rules of Ishmael or something like that. I'm not really big into making these rules hard and fast. I think they are principles, and I think they can be utilized. I don't think that if you don't follow these particular rules that you're not going to be able to read your Bible. That's not what I'm trying to say. Thus, the term rules are more like guidelines. It's just an inductive way of studying your Bible. And the four that they're describing, however, are the plain, or the literal, or the pashat. And then the next one was the hint, or the remez. What is the text hinting at? And then the next level that you could look at the Torah text was the drash, the D-R-A-S-H, or the midrash, the searching, or that which maybe it was hidden there, but you had to dig it out. And then finally they had the esoteric level, or the mystical, usually involving gematria, or concerning itself with the letters in there and how they line up with one another. And this is known as the sod. And so this last one, sod, is actually where we get the English word zodiac from. I want to focus on this pattern. Look on the top of page 4, and you'll again see those same letters, except this time I've removed the B, C, and D and replaced them with arrows. So now, looking at the top of the menorah, let's picture it this way. We've got our letter A as our central shaft, and to the left and right of the A we have an arrow pointing in, or like a greater or less than sign, and it's pointing towards the A. And to the left and right of that we have another arrow pointing in towards the first arrows. And then to the left and right of those we have arrows pointing into those final sets. So we have the letter A in the middle, we have 3 on one side on the left, and then we 3 on the other side. And all of the arrows are pointing in towards the letter A. Okay? I want to read the first 3 verses of our parasha in Hebrew for us, because the whole parasha, Beh-hah-ah-lote-khah, the first few pasukim, concerns itself with how to set up the menorah. So let's read these pasukim, and then we'll look at and I'll tell you why I'm reading in the Hebrew, because there's a phrase in there that is going to that we're going to have to look at briefly. Verse 1 says, Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, Daber el Aharon va'amarta elaiv Beh-hah-ah-lote-khah et hanerot el mul penei ha-menorah ya'iru shivat hanerot vaya'as kain Aharon el mul penei ha-menorah he'elah nerotecha ka'asher tziva Adonai et Moshe. End quote. That's verses 1, 2, and 3. The English is, Adonai said to Moshe, tell Aharon, when you set up the lamps, the 7 lamps are to cast their light forward in front of the menorah. Aharon did this. He lit its lamps so as to give light in front of the menorah, as Adonai had ordered Moshe. End quote. When you set up Beh-hah-ah-lote-khah. In the opening few verses of our current parasha, we learn that the actual removable lamps, which rest upon each branch, they face inward toward the central shaft, just like the little diagram that I put up there, and consequently toward the center lamp as well. Now again, when we talk about lamps, we're talking about an Aladdin's type lamp with a handle on one end and a spout at the opposite end where the wick pops out, okay? And perhaps maybe even a little cap where we can pour the oil in. Basically, an ancient oil lamp was designed like this. The older lamps are still made this way, very old lamps, obviously. But that's the type of lamp, and the base of the lamp had some type of fixture that rested on the menorah structure on the branch, and it was turnable. It could turn about. You could position it to you could spin it on its base. Rashi actually confirms this arrangement in his commentary to these pasukim as far as the orientation of the lamps, that they didn't, since keep in mind, all right, an Aladdin's type of lamp, if you were to hold the lamp in front of your face, you were looking at the Aladdin's lamp. You all saw Aladdin, right? You know what I'm talking about? The genie and Aladdin. And the lamp is kind of like, you got the or you've seen the little, picture almost a teapot, similar fashion, right? You've all seen the little children's song where the children take one arm and they make like a little handle on one side. They kind of touch their waist, make kind of like a circle shape, and then they got their other hand extended out away from their body, and then they say, I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here is my handle, here is my spout. Okay? The handle on one side, the spout on the other. Yes, I had an interesting childhood. So you got the handle on one side, the spout on the other. That's kind of what the little lamp is. Just picture that in miniature. So if that's the case, the wick is protruding out of the spout part, which means that you could position the light to be in front of you, or to the side, or however you want to do it. So Rashi confirms the orientation that the lamps, the three pairs on one side of the center and the three pairs on the other side, were positioned in such a way so that the handles were facing out, away from the center shaft, and the lamps were facing in, oriented towards the center of the lamp. Let's read Rashi's commentary, all right? Quote, "Our sages further expounded from here that there was a step in front of the menorah on which the Kohen stood to prepare the lamps." This is according to Sifrei Beh-hah-ah-lote-khah number 3. "Toward the face of the menorah. Toward the middle lamp, which is not on one of the branches, but on the menorah itself," according to Menachot 98b, which is a quote from the Talmud. The menorah itself, the middle lamp shall cast. Let me pick up the quote again. "Towards the middle lamp, which is not on one of the branches but on the menorah itself, shall cast their light." The other branches shall cast their light. "The 6 on the 6 branches, the 3 eastern ones." Keep in mind, the lamp was on the. If you were to look at the whole structure of the Mishkan from top view, and whenever we're reading a map, north is always oriented to the top of the map. So north is on top, south is on the bottom, east is to the right, west is to the left. The menorah was put in the southern part of the holy place, okay, and the showbread was placed in the northern part of the holy place. And so, because if you picture the menorah along the southern wall of this compartment of the holy place, well, then what Rashi is trying to say is here that the 6 on the 6 branches, the 3 eastern ones, that is to say, if we were looking at top view, the eastern ones would be the right side if we were looking top down. The 3 eastern ones, that is, their wicks facing toward the center one, and likewise the 3 western ones, again, if we're looking top view, these would be on our left now. The 3 western ones, the tops of their wicks facing toward the center one. He goes ahead and he asks questions. Why were the wicks facing inward, thus giving off so little light? Think about it. If we were to orient these lamps and turn them forward, all of them forward facing, then the light would be thrown forward and we'd get more light out of that. So Rashi asks the question, why were the wicks facing inwards, thus giving off so little light? His answer, so that people should not say that he, God, needs the light, according to Tanhuma Beh-hah-ah-lote-khah number 5. Okay? Again, my purpose in bringing up the quote from Rashi was not to ponder all of the intricacies of his quote. I simply wanted to show you that he is also agreeing on the orientation of the lamps facing inwards towards one another, the right side and the left side giving their light towards the center lamp. That quote from Rashi, by the way, is taken from the website that I could not remember a few parashot ago. Remember I was trying to say Rashi is available online? It's chabad.org, chabad.org, and you can look up the commentary to Rashi easily right from the homepage. Now Rashi's opinion, however, as important as it is, his opinion is not universally shared. And so what I want to do is I want to bring in a second opinion. Typically, if I'm going to quote a rabbinic sage, I usually like to bring in one opinion, 2 opinions, and then maybe a third opinion to balance the 2 out. That's typically what I'm going to do. In this case, I'm just going to bring in 2. I'll bring Rashi's opinion, and then I'd like to bring in the JPS commentary to Numbers chapter 8, verses 2 and 3, which of course is our parasha. JPS is Jewish Publication Society. Let's look at what they have to say. They suggest other possible ways in which to understand how the lamps themselves were positioned, okay? Because remember, the verse said at the front. That's why I read the Hebrew just a moment ago. Commenting on these passages, or on these verses, the JPS commentary reads this way, quote, speaking about in, verse 2 and verse 3. Speaking of verse 2, first of all, the phrase, commenting on the phrase at the front, which the Hebrew is el mul panei. This is what the JPS has to say, quote, if the intent is that the light should be thrown toward the central lampstand, and they reference 2 Samuel 11:15. Now, from 2 Samuel 11:15, just so you know, you don't have to go look it up. I'll go ahead and explain it to you. In 2 Samuel 11:15, David took he took Uriah, the husband of Bathsheba, and he put him in the front lines. He put him at the front of the line because he wanted to kill him. You remember he was plotting murder because he was trying to cover up his adulterous affair with Bathsheba. So he threw Uriah to the front line where he knew he would get killed, where the battle was hottest. And in the 2 Samuel passage, the Hebrew of that passage is similar to this phrase, el mulpnei, at the front. Put Uriah at the front. Okay, so if the intent is that the light should be thrown toward the central lampstand at the front, then the pinched lips or nozzles of the lamps atop the 6 branches would face the lampstand. However, one would expect the text to read 6, not 7 lamps. Okay, let me go back and read the verse. Look at verse 2. Where it said, Daber el Aharon va'amarta elaiv Beh-hah-ah-lote-khah et hanerot el mu pnei ha-menorah. And look at the next clause, Ya'iru shivat hanerot. Shivat hanerot. Shivat. 7. Says when you set up the lamps, the 7 lamps are to cast their light forward. At a normative reading, it seems like all 7 are going forward. So the JPS is picking up on this peculiarity of the rendering. It says, however, one would expect the text to read 6, not 7 lamps, if we were just going to have them the 6 go forward. Perhaps then the light is thrown forward, in essence, northward. Remember, we're looking top down at our map of the Mishkan. We've got north on the top, south on the bottom, east on the right, and west on the left. And the menorah occupies the southern part of the room, or the lower part in our map, which would be the southern part. It's down near the bottom of the room. And so it's casting its light forward, and according to the Rashi, we already read that they are on the east and the west. But according to the JPS, perhaps then the light is thrown forward in essence northward toward the table. Remember I told you the table is in the north part of the room, the menorah is on the south part of the room. And again, the JPS brings out that this interpretation that it's postulating is supported by Exodus 25:37, where the synonymous expression, quote, al ever penei, clearly means forward, end quote. And then commenting on verse 3, the phrase at the front is repeated again. If you'll go back and look at the verse, it said in verse 2, tell Aharon when you set up the lamps, the 7 lamps are to cast their light forward in front of the menorah. Okay, again, the Hebrew is el mul pnei ha-menorah. And then verse 3 says Aharon did this. He lit its lamps so as to give light in front of the menorah. Vaya'as ken Aharon el mul pnei ha-menorah. So again, the phrase el mul pnei is repeated twice. So the JPS takes note of this again, commenting on verse 3. Quote, the fact that the idiom el mul pnei is repeated indicates that the purpose of this passage is to stress the positioning of the lamps, end quote. I lifted that quote out of the JPS from Jacob Milgram. Look at the footnote down on the bottom of page 5. Jacob Milgram, the JPS Torah Commentary to Numbers, Jewish Publication Society, 1990, page 60. Okay. Now, I still haven't even gotten into the codes yet. That's how this whole commentary, or not the whole commentary, this section is entitled Bible Codes. So stick with me, just bear with me. I know it's 15 minutes into the commentary, and I hadn't said anything about the codes. We got to talk about the position first before we can get into the codes. Okay. Now, I personally believe, after reading these two opinions, Rashi's and the JPS, I personally believe that Rashi's description is correct here myself. However, no matter which opinion we take, surely there were 6 plus 1 lamps for us to see. That pattern is sure. There's no ambiguity in the text about the pattern of the 6 plus 1, and where the 6 is broken down into 2 pairs of 3 on each side. The focal point of the menorah, because of the way it's constructed, is easily assumed to be the central supporting shaft. Now, this center shaft and light, the light that sits upon it, are known in Judaism as the shamash, coming from the Hebrew word which means servant. The central lamp is the servant lamp. In typical Judaic fashion, the servant lamp is lit first. In fact, if you've ever lit a HaNaviy, you light the center lamp, the shamash, first, and then you use that center lamp to light the other lamps. The center lamp, the shamash, or if it's a menorah where the shamash is on the far end, that's fine as well. It doesn't always have to be the center. It's just simply the prominent lamp or candle. It gets lit first. In fact, it's not even one of the 8 candles that's counted on the first night where you light the first candle. There are actually 8 candles in a HaNaviy, 9 counting the shamash, and you light the shamash, and then you pick up the shamash and you light the first candle. So thus, on the first night of Hanukkah, you actually have 2 candles lit. And then on the remaining 7 nights, you light, because there's only 8 nights to Hanukkah, right? Even though there's 9 candles. You light the other remaining 7. So the center lamp is the servant lamp. He is the one that's serving the other lamps. And thus, he earns the title Shamash. Now, the biblical menorah is a heavenly pattern. Moshe didn't pull this out of his head. God gave it to him. Remember, since it's a heavenly pattern, obviously, we should be able to gain this insight from the very fact that Hashem even had a particular way in which the lamps were to be positioned. Moshe was not just, again, making things up on his own. God is instructing him. Here's how you are to make it. Here's how they are to be positioned. The pattern of the symmetrical and equal numbers facing the central servant is the pattern that I want to examine in this next section, okay? Now we're going to start getting into the codes. You guys ready? The menorah consists of 6 lamps plus one servant lamp. Okay, that much is known. In the first 5 books of the Torah written by Moshe, there actually is a hidden menorah. Now, when I say a hidden menorah, I simply mean I mean the pattern where we have a center shaft surrounded by an equal number of other shafts. It's typically an odd number for it to be what we call a true menorah pattern. It can be 5, it can be 7, it could be 9. The center shaft is surrounded by an equal number of paired off shafts. So we have in the menorah pattern we have 1 plus 3 on one side and 3 on the other. Now, thanks to popular selling books such as the Bible Codes by Michael Drosnin, many of you are somewhat familiar with the mathematical phenomena known as equidistant letter spacing, or ELS. Okay, it's a formula in which hidden words within the original Hebrew text are revealed using, again, a mathematical equation or a mathematical. It's really it's an algorithm that allows, I believe, the math to manipulate the letters. Having reservations about his work, I want to make this disclaimer. Having reservations about his work, I do not personally endorse Mr. Drosnin's book. Mr. Drosnin, if you're listening to my commentary, great book. I've read it. I don't own it. I cheated. I went to the store. I can speed read. I went to the store, and in a space of about 15 minutes or so, I slowed down my speed reading, but I still sped read it without actually buying the book. Anyway, I didn't feel that too guilty. The book was a great read, but I just don't endorse it. We come to 2 different conclusions at the end of the book. If you have the book, then fine. That's fine if you have it. I'm not trying to knock anyone who bought the book. However, much to the surprise of many people, there indeed does exist genuine Bible codes. Oh yes, there really are there. If I can borrow the term without confusion, that is to say, Bible codes that don't speak into the future, like, trying to tell me when President Reagan was going to be shot, or tell me when what is it they had in there, when Yitzhak Rabin was supposed to be shot, who his killer was, things like that. That's not the term that I'm borrowing. That's where Drosnin goes in his book, but that's not where I'm going when I use the phrase Bible codes. Okay, within the Hebrew text, there are, in fact, if we count equidistant letter spacing, there is in fact hidden words that will show up. This week, hang on to your hats. Get your seatbelts on. I'm going to reveal one of them to you right here in this commentary. You guys ready? Hope this is going to be fun for you, all right? What we're going to need to do first for this exercise, and this is going to be the first time I've done it on audio. I mean, I've taught this where I usually like to draw this out on a board. However, this is going to be the first time that I'm going to attempt to try and do it without drawing. Those of you listening, you're just going to have to play like this the days of old where we had the radio and where the people on the radio drew you into the drama with the sound of their voice. So hopefully I'm going to try and do that for you. What we need to do first is we need to construct our menorah. All right? We're going to use the first 5 books of the Bible this way. If you're using my written commentary along with this audio, which is how I usually recommend you guys study, in other words, go to the website and print out the commentary. I typically recommend printing out the PDF version because any Hebrew or Greek fonts are going to be preserved. If you print it out straight from the email that I send you, from your Hotmail or your Yahoo or your Google Mail or whatever email program you're receiving my mailer through, sometimes the fonts and the formatting gets lost because the HTML gets stripped and all you end up with is the plain text. So I highly recommend going to the website, or which I provide the links for in every single email. And so you print out the audio. You print out the written commentary, and then you download the audio and give it a listen while you have it in your hands. Okay, look at the top of page 6. Here's our menorah. Okay, we got the book of starting from right to left. Why? Because Hebrew reads right to left. We got Genesis, space, Exodus, space, Leviticus, and the word Leviticus there is bolded. The letters are bigger in size. Space, Numbers, space, Deuteronomy. So the word Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, reading right to left, I think they're probably size maybe 14 font, whatever, 14 point. And then the word Leviticus, all of the letters are bolded, but the word Leviticus is like 16 points, okay? So it's a little bigger. So in our above diagram that I just described for you, the books read right to left, just like you would find them in any standard Hebrew Torah, with the book of Leviticus serving as our shamash, okay? It's the center lamp. So we got the 2 pairs on either side. We got Exodus and Genesis on the right side of Leviticus, and we have Numbers and Deuteronomy on the left side of Leviticus. Now using the pattern given to us in the first few verses of our current parasha, we're going to see how the lamps, and again the word lamp there is in quotes, or quote-unquote lamp. We're going to see how the lamps of Genesis and Exodus, as well as Numbers and Deuteronomy, actually face Leviticus. You ready? I think it's going to be fun. And it's about 30 minutes into the commentary, and with that I'm going to break it off and call it Part B, and we're just going to continue after this with Part C. So it looks like there'll probably be about 3 parts to Parashat Beh-hah-ah-lote-khah. So stay with us for Part C to Parashat Beh-hah-ah-lote-khah.